Hi everyone, this is Emanuele from Italy, but you know me better as Evil Dead Italia. So this night we are going to have a very good, very cool, a great guest in our weekly interview. It's the first time that I have the opportunity to talk a lot with Mr. Sullivan. There is just a small little change of the schedule, so we were not able to record this in live, but I have the whole interview recorded, and it's a great interview because we talked almost for something like, I don't know, 2 hours. It was a great interview. We talked a lot of many things. I don't want to give you any spoiler, and without any further ado, I'm going to show you the interview. Before, remember, if you can, please leave a like on my Facebook page, on my Instagram profile, and please subscribe on my YouTube channel. It's going to be very helpful in order to me to get more other cool interview like this one. However, without any further ado, I'm muting myself and then I'm going to make start the interview itself. That, as I said, for the one connecting just now, it's recorded and not is not live. Good evening, Tom. Thank you for being here with us. It's a great pleasure to have you here as my guest in Evil Dead Italia podcast. For anyone connecting right now, this is a recorded video because there were some scheduled issues. So we arranged I recorded the interview, but I'm pretty sure you will love this one. Okay, so thank you, Tom, for being here. It's a lot of time we don't meet. I just met you once in 2015 in Chicago. It was my first trip in US.
Oh
I,
boy.
I had three trip in US then, and it was a real pleasure because you have to know Tom is a great human being. He's a very kind man. Is a very I mean he's a great artist, but even a very good a very good a very good guy. So,
Thank you.
first of all, mm, Evil Dead was a very, very pivotal movie for me because I was born in 1981, and so I had my 40th birthday the same year when the movie was 40. So I'm pretty tied to this movie. My God, all fast past time. I think it's a very I mean, 40 years is a lot of time. Yeah?
Happy birthday.
You told me that your Wikipedia page is full of nice and fun errors. So
Yeah.
I think we can, let's say, go through your life with the error in, in the Wikipedia page, maybe. Okay. So I'm going to share it so anyone can see this one. We are talking about the English language Wikipedia page, obviously, for the one not
Yep.
Italian, not English, not the English talking connected.
And there's a bunch of Tom Sullivans out there, so put in Tom Sullivan Evil Dead. You'll get me.
This one, right? Tom Sullivan
Yep.
speech after out. Okay, I'm going to enlarge this one so we can see it better.
Yep.
Okay. So first of all, Tom Sullivan is an American special effects artist and actor. No,
Yes.
primarily for his work. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
That is true.
Ah, you were even an actor. Okay, I missed that. I missed that. Okay. You were in the Evil Dead like a fake champ, or you did other
Yeah,
stuff?
I was a fake shemp for Bruce in scenes that you can't really tell. I'm even in the car in one shot, and I'm the hands that burst out of the gloves that burst out of Scotty and Shelley, or Scotty and Cheryl at the finale.
Wow.
I'm throwing the guts into the audience's lap. That was very
Okay.
important that I do that.
Okay, that's great. No,
I'm
primarily.
also in. I've also acted in a couple of movies. I have an IMDb page, Tom Sullivan in parentheses 3, and
Okay.
you can see the films I've been in.
Okay, I'm going to share that later then. so we can talk even about that one. So known primarily for his work on Sam Raimi Evil Dead trilogy, comprising Evil Dead 2, and Army of Darkness, as well as The Fly 2.
Yes.
Sullivan was responsible for helping the design of the Book of the Dead, or the Necronomicon, in the Evil Dead, and drew the illustration and symbols seen on the pages of the book.
Yes.
So,
I made up that language. I call it bull script.
Bull script, that's great. Bull script,
Sanskrit and bull.
that's great. So until now, it's correct or not, or it's already
So
there is
far,
already some error.
so far we're good.
Okay. Career. In the mid 1970s, Sullivan met director Sam Raimi because his girlfriend was attending Michigan State University at the same time as Raimi, along with actor Bruce Campbell, screenwriter Scott Spiegel, and producer Rob Tappert. Is that
Uh,
right?
no, some of it is. I met Sam Raimi in '78, as I recall, and it wasn't my girlfriend; it was my wife, Penny Sullivan,
Hmm.
and we she was attending Michigan State University at the same time as Sam and Robert Tappert. Robert Tappert shared a room with Ivan Raimi, Sam's brother.
Yeah.
And Bruce Campbell was going to a different, I think Eastern at the time or some other college. And I'm not sure Scott went to college, or if he did, I don't know where. And so anyway, that's I corrected that once on Wiki, but they changed it back.
Then Sullivan bonded with Raimi over their mutual interest in stop motion animation, special effects, claymation, and puppetry in relation to filmmaking.
No, we bonded over film. He wasn't that interested in stop motion animation. He hadn't ever tried it. He had seen Harryhausen films, but it didn't affect him like it did me, I guess. And he hadn't seen Equinox, which has come up as an influence on Evil Dead. I had several times by that time, and I'm not sure claymation was a thing at that point. It may have been, but I didn't. For my finale of Evil Dead, I didn't use claymation. I used clay animation. Claymation is a licensed thing. It's a
Ah, okay.
trademark technique, and
Clear.
but I use clay animation, and
Okay.
but we we both loved horror films, loved movies in general, and Sam was at 19 years old when I met him a encyclopedia of film technique. He had analyzed films to a degree I'd never considered before, and he was always amazing to talk to.
That's
So that's
great.
that part.
And what about your knowledge about of stop motion at that times? If I remember correctly, you were already expert in that in some way because you loved the King Kong movie, as we can see on your background with the poster. Wait a moment,
Yep.
I'm going to enlarge it for a moment. Wait a moment, because that poster is really great. Wow, it's the 1933, right? It's the
Yes.
1933. I
1933.
Yeah, I had a VHS a long time ago. I had a VHS of that one. I loved it.
There's a beautiful Blu-ray of it today
Yeah,
with
yeah.
extended scenes.
It's a great movie indeed. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Eh,
I saw it when I was 5 years old, or I saw the first half of it when I was 5 years old with my brother Mike. And we got up to the point, like in the middle of the King Kong T-Rex fight, and my dad yells upstairs, "Come on, guys, we got to go to the lumberyard." "No, Dad, the coolest movie's on." So by the time we got back, it was all over. But my mom, who also loved movies, she looked for King Kong in the TV guide for the next year until it came up 4 o'clock on some Saturday, and I invited a bunch of friends over, and we had popcorn and soda pop, and really enjoyed it. And I got to see how it ended, and it had an immense effect on me. I immediately was interested in not only dinosaurs but recreating things like that, and so that got me interested into sculpting in clay and doing artwork and all that. And thanks to Forrest Ackerman's famous Monsters magazine, I got to learn about Willis O'Brien, Ray Harryhausen, and Jack Pierce, and the Westmorelands, and all those giants of and Lon Chaney, of course, and the techniques of special effects, and learned a little bit how they did that stuff. And then I scoured. I loved libraries. I spent afternoons into dinner time at the local libraries looking up everything I could on it, reading Time magazine movie reviews just to learn more about movies and stuff. And I had a great mom, and she would let me. We lived in Illinois at the time, where like movies started at 10:30, the evening movies, like the fun ones, the old ones. And she'd let me stay up late on a school day, as long as, of course, my homework was done. And I promised I wouldn't complain about getting up at 7 a.m. or whatever to get ready for school. And I never complained. But she knew who all the actors were. She grew up in that era, and it became important to me to learn all the actors. If there's ever a TV show with name that actor or name that movie, I'd do pretty well.
I have the three questions then. First,
Sure.
for the first one is about this book. I mean, I have this
Oh,
two-volume book, and I love it.
yeah.
What is I mean, you are cited in it as the man behind the Evil Dead. What was your emotion in knowing that you are in the same book as Ray Harryhausen and other
Honest,
giants?
I was floored by Mr. Neil Pettigrew's amazing book. Something all stop motion animators and then fans of that technique should have. It's an encyclopedia of talented people who helped make growing up so much fun. And I was honored just to be mentioned in it, much less given a nice little portion. And
You
I
deserve it, right? I mean, you deserve it.
yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
The second one is related to King Kong. There is this another movie, not in stop motion, from 1978. So I have to ask you, what is your impression about that movie? Do you like it? Do you like it or not at all?
Which film?
The King Kong of 1978, the one by
Oh,
with the puppet of Carlo Rambaldi, that is Italian. So it's a question
um,
I would like to have with you.
I was first in line when it showed in Battle Creek. I I was already very trepidatious about it because I'd seen Dino De Laurentiis on the Tom Snyder show, and I knew he was full of crap. I knew they didn't film it with a 40-foot tall robot. I knew that was impossible at that era. Even today, it's ridiculous. And I mean, it worked fine in the King Kong ride at Universal's and stuff, which was basically a balloon with motion with a movable structure. But yeah, it captured none of the magic. I'm really glad it didn't destroy people's career. Charles, what's his name? Who played the corporation guy?
Yeah,
Charles. Um, anyway, Jeff Bridges did great. Jessica Lange went on to an amazing career, and Ed Lauder and Rene Aubergenois and
Charles Grodin,
Charles
Grodin.
Grodin, amazing Charles Grodin. Yes, how could I forget his name? And so I'm glad that happened. And I think what it shows is how hard it is to capture the magic. To me, it came off as I'm watching it in the theater. I thought this is like a ambitious made-for-TV movie. The sets looked like sets. The story was just dull and slogged along. It made very little dramatic sense. Boy, I was so disappointed. And of course, no dinosaurs, just a bad rubber snake that didn't move unless Kong moved it. And shucks, you know, uh, yeah, 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 and the worst thing is it ruined the chances for the was it the Universal King Kong
Hmm.
that was due out a year or so later, which I
The
saw
Peter
Albert.
Jackson one, right? The Peter Jackson
No,
one.
no, this would be the one with directed. I forgot who was going to direct it, but Albert Whitlock was going to do matte paintings for it. And I saw him at Berkeley campus, and he said that they had discarded stop motion because you couldn't capture uh, um, atmosphere with stop motion. To which the audience groaned noticeably. And I'd heard that they had talked to Jim Danforth, and he had convinced them he could do a excellent job with it. I hope that's correct. And they had decided to go with stop motion because that is the only way to do this stuff. People in suits. Uh, Boy, today you might be a little different with the advances they've made in suits and animatronics and the motion capture done by the motion uh, abilities done by remote control and stuff. But boy, back then it would have been a disaster. And I've read the script and it's a lot of fun, but it took us into new territory. There's a dinosaur graveyard and stuff like that, which I thought would be cool. And he fought. They had contractually had to fight different dinosaurs, and but it would have been a fun movie. And they were talking like Robert Redford as Jack Driscoll and Peter Falk as Carl Denham, and that kind of thing. That would have been interesting.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I have to ask, do you think that the current technology are still helpful to have a good stop motion movie? They make it easier, mm, or do you prefer the old school? Let's say,
Well, we have Primevals uh, has been released to theaters and should be out on Blu-ray in the hopefully near future. Do you know about that film? It was David Allen's pet project that he had started back in '96 and had filmed it with Juliet Mills and Robert Cornthwaite and other actors. And sadly, Mr. Danforth passed away. And thankfully, the film was finally finished. Um, and there are trailers for it, and it looks beautiful. The stop motion is looks almost digital. It's so carefully done, and that's David Allen's high standards. And they may have. It looks like they used digital compositing, which I have no problem with. It's a great tool. If Ray was still making films, he'd probably be using that as well. I love the old techniques because while you fall for the illusions they've created, you can kind of analyze how they were done, and my admiration for those films goes up amazingly. Ray was an artist at the way he used the rear screen and blended his stuff in so that the actors contacted with the creatures all the time, and he controlled shadows and other things. And I go through those films every time I see something new, and that's just a tribute to his masterful work.
yeah, absolutely. And talking about Ray Harryhausen, if I'm spelling it correctly, what is your favorite movie of his movies?
Boy, I think, well, I've got different categories. I think best overall film, I mean, the one that would hit just a regular audience, I think First Men on the Moon is just so well made, so well acted, such a great script, it's a terrific ending, and great drama, and the monsters, the stop motion really serves the film. And there's that. My favorite scene in any uh, Harryhausen film is the Allosaurus fight in 1 million years BC. That just kinetically knocks my head off. It's just the character of you can tell the thing is hungry, it wants to eat, and doesn't care about the pesky little cavemen. They're just food with sticks to him. and I just amazed how that goes. But you know, Jason and the Argonauts, Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, all the Sinbad films I really enjoy. What I like about the Sinbad films is how Sinbad is best friends with his crew, and their deaths and trials that they go through are very important to him. No matter who's playing Sinbad, and uh, I but I love every film. Gulliver's Travels is a lot of fun. At least he took us to, we got three worlds of Gulliver, and of course there's many more in the book. And Ted Danson did an excellent adaptation of of the Gulliver's Travels, which I highly recommend if you can find it. It's streaming somewhere. And what else? His first his I've got his fairy tales, his experiment stuff, his early stuff. It's all amazing to look at. I tried some rear screen um, uh, with a little painted frosted glass and my Super 8 projector and my single frame Super 8 camera, and had interesting results. It wasn't feature film quality, but it worked. And I had my brother Mike on a mound of dirt we found, and he's just poking at stuff, and then he finds out. Then he eventually is battling a tentacle thing, and that was fun. But that my experiments with stop motion, I got to share with Sam Raimi when I met him up at Michigan State, and we'd get together and over at his apartment and smoke pot, and I'd watch his movies and they'd watch my. I didn't have movies, completed films. I just had reels of special effects and clay animation and paintings that I'd animate and stuff like that. But I had a range of techniques, and I'd also had a mask company for one Halloween where I'd made, witch masks and a cone head, like Saturday Night Live, and a werewolf face and stuff like that. And uh, sold a couple of them, but didn't follow it up.
That's great. And just out of curiosity, I suppose that you don't have anything left. I mean, this kind of puppetry tend of destroy themselves. I mean, they get ruined for the material of which they are done. This
Yeah,
something is,
the foam
yeah.
rubber disintegrates just on its own in the ozone, and sunlight and other things don't help it either. But uh, uh, it's sad about that. But if you have molds, you can fix them. A very talented artist named Alan Friswell fixed up Ray Harryhausen's models for
Mhm.
display, and did an astounding job on them. He's a friend on Facebook, and I
Wow,
applaud him.
wow, that's great. Okay, let's continue on the your biography on
Oh,
Wikipedia.
sure.
So he joined the crew of Raimi's 1978 short film Within the Woods as a special effects artist. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
And
He
that was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun. Hard work, but a lot of fun. And I I put Bruce in the makeup on Friday, and it took like 5 hours because it was all built up. There wasn't any pre-production time, and he had an eyeball hanging, which I still have the eyeball. It's still in
Ooh,
pretty good shape. And uh, but he had his face, his eye was covered with latex, but I built up with tissue paper, and then the eyeball was hanging out of it. And he decided it was so long to go through the makeup. He didn't want to do that every day. So what happened was he decided to keep it on for the whole show. So he was sleeping with it, and uh, I think it was late Saturday night. Uh, he was in his room, or in a room at the location, and I was told not to bother him. I needed, wondered if he needed touch ups on his makeup, and apparently he had reached what they call the latex point, where it's fun to wear a mask for a couple hours. But boy, when you're in a film and you're working 14, 16 hours a day, and then you do that, you keep the stuff on for the next day, and it's just people like me poking at it and coloring it and trying to fix it up and keep it fresh. It just wears on you. It's a gruel. But Bruce is an amazing trooper, and he put up with it. And I was so lucky in the Evil Dead films to have actors who really sold the makeup, uh, and I applaud them for that too. It's just I'm so pleased that it works because there really wasn't time to do much. I on Evil Dead, I say Ellen has to get it turned into Cheryl as a Deadite. I'd wake her up at like 5 in the morning or earlier, 4, and she'd lay back down on a cot, and I'd start doing the makeup. She'd go to sleep, and it would take 3 to 5 hours to put the makeup on.
Oh my God.
And especially the first time, because I'd do it with clay or with latex and tissue paper, and build up the textures and stuff. And then I would peel that off at the end of the day and then apply it again the next day and blend it. And so the makeup would change a little bit. And of course, I went through the stage of the Deadites. I just used paint.
I'm
I got
okay. I'm restarting. Yes, I'm restarting to record.
okay,
Okay, okay, okay. Yes, there was a little glitch, but we are now again there. So
okay.
you were telling me about the second time Ellen put the makeup on.
Yeah, so I would glue the makeup on again, and like for example, I had distressed the back of her hands when she first became evil Deadite Cheryl, and then I would peel that off and glue it on again, and have to extend the latex until it actually became a glove, and which was fortunate because at one point, and we filmed pretty much the Deadite stuff in chronological order. And so at one point near the finale, Bruce is standing in front of the door, and Ellen's hands burst through the door. Well, Rob Tappert, the producer, his hands were small enough to fit into the gloves. And so he's the stunt man who burst through the door and grabbed Bruce and, grabbed him by the mouth and all that. And
This one, right? This one, right? I mean, or this one.
those, yes, those, that's the gloves and the makeup. Yes. And
Wow,
those still exist.
great. And they doesn't dissolve like other stuff.
Well, uh, I didn't use grease paint to paint on them as you normally would. I use acrylic paint, and that happened to seal them, so they've lasted longer.
Wow, wow, that's great.
Happy accident.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's go ahead with this Wikipedia page. Wait a moment, it's coming back. Okay. It would later work on the Evil Dead, Raimi's feature-length remake of the Within the Woods. Okay, this is a clear error because it's not a remake of Within the Woods, the Evil Dead. Uh, as
It's
a
a
special,
prequel. It's kind
yeah,
of a sketch, a prototype for Evil Dead.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Yes, this is an error, absolutely. As a special makeup effect artist, where he worked with such materials as foam latex and fake blood.
I didn't use any foam latex on Within the Woods. I did on Evil Dead for Linda's leg that got stabbed with the pencil, and also Cheryl's hand, and I think that's about it. Uh, but we used Sam Raimi's fake blood recipe, which is corn syrup, red food coloring, 1 drop of blue food coloring, and then you make up a paste. Like for a jar, make up of like a half a cup or 3/4 of a cup of uh, the of water and instant coffee, and stir that up so the instant coffee dissolves, and then you pour that into the red blood, the colored blood uh, stuff, and then you stir that up really well. The coffee blood is opaque, and the instant coffee makes it opaque, and plus it keeps it so it's edible. Now it was my job to fill up the tubes with blood, and then fill up my mouth with blood, and then blow the blood, and you could simulate the splurts,
Yeah. Wow.
of the heart beating better that way. And fortunately, shots weren't that long, so you can get 4 or 5 good blurts in there during the take. That and Sam's cutting fast. It's gonna suffice. The problem was is I used to love coffee, but after months and months of uh, coffee syrup, I haven't had a cup since. Darn, I used to love dipping buttered toast in coffee.
You still don't drink it anymore, or you start
No,
more and more?
I have flashbacks.
I interviewed Tim Philo a long time ago for
Ah,
my book, in which you were interviewed too, and he told me that you use even coffee to wash your hand because there was no electricity and there is so much cold that you need something hot to wash
oh,
your.
it's worse than that. Um, the contact lenses for the Deadites, they came with a bottle of sanitary fluid,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so they could rinse them with. Of course, after 2 days, that was gone, and they were using coffee to rinse those
Oh,
out with because
oh
there's
my god.
nothing else on the set. And oh, the suffering they went through for all that. Because of course, those contact lenses were like you take a 50-cent piece, uh, a large piece of metal, and you turn it into a hemisphere, and then you fit that into your eye. It wasn't like these nice soft things they have today. It was like as thick as a coin, and you were blind. You couldn't see. And I'm happy to say that Rob brought, when I arrived after I'd been there a couple of days at the location, Rob Tappert came in, and they had talked to an ophthalmologist, and he had samples of various eyes, and some were like yellow with a little black iris and things like that. And then they had the blank one that was just the veins, that was just all white. And I said, "Oh, go with that," because as an artist, I'm going. The contrast is what you want, because your eye will go to the starkest contrast, and white against dark circled eyes is gold. And so we went with that. I'm glad I got an influence on that, because I think that really makes it. I'm surprised they haven't used that in the other Evil Dead films, though,
Yeah,
because
yeah, exactly, exactly.
that's a trademark.
They change it. Yes, sometimes they are orange, yellow, something like that.
Yeah, Evil Dead Rise, they were more human.
Yeah, yeah. There is a white eye that died indeed, but it's well hidden
Ah,
in the background. And I have a question because I never asked, I never read about it, but we know the destiny of some items, some props you used on the set, but what was the end of those scleral lenses? They got destroyed.
I not sure what happened to those. I didn't. I never put them in their eyes. I let the producers do that, or the actors themselves. That was too much for me. I'm actually squeamish about such things. I didn't like horror films at all. The first horror film I saw, well, when I was a kid, I saw um, House on Haunted Hill. Uh,
Wow.
I was like 10 years old. Have an older sister and a younger brother, and we talked to. My parents were gone for the evening, and it was showing that night at 11 o'clock. And my folks weren't going to be home till 1, so we talked him into letting us see House on Haunted Hill with Vincent Price, and we made it to the point where that witch kind of skateboards out of the room like funny. And so I avoided them. I even avoided violent movies. I didn't see a James Bond film until Thunderball in a
Mm,
theater because I
yeah,
thought, oh, it's too violent for me. And of course, I eat that stuff up today. Uh, because now I love the action and the kinetic nature of it, and the technique and artistry that goes into that stuff. Blood squibs and all the goofy ways you can make people blow up or whatever.
yeah,
And because to me, it's kind of comedic when I see it. It can be graphic and gory and disturbing, but for the most part, I think it's like most audiences. I find it to be a lot of fun.
yeah. That's real. Have you seen the last version of House on the Hill, Hill House? Sorry, on Netflix. It's very different from the original material, indeed.
The House on Haunted Hill, the new
Yeah,
one,
yeah.
loved it. I thought it was great. I thought it was great. Good story. I had enough of the flavor of the first one and the story of the first one, but uh, it was terrific. I enjoyed it. I've got it in my collection.
Uh, Great, great series. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, let's go ahead. Okay, so for the letter, he used the coffee and as an added ingredient to the traditional fake blood of formula of corn syrup and food coloring. Okay, we should
Yeah,
say that this is correct. Okay.
that is correct. Of course, they missed the uh, blended uh, instant coffee with that.
Hmm.
Oh, it does say coffee. Yeah, not coffee, but a paste of instant coffee with water.
Ah, okay, okay, okay. That's great. Sullivan helped rig camera mounts and other contraption for stunts and some of the film's signature shots.
Uh, Absolutely not true. I've never claimed that, and that was they're talking about the shaky cam. We couldn't afford a steady cam, of course. You need a special operator trained on that. So Sam came up with the shaky cam, and there were two versions. There was one with like an 8 foot 2x4, and at one end they'd mount a camera mount and have straps on it, and then there was a shorter one, like a foot and a half or so, uh, maybe 2 feet that they use. I think that was the 2 foot one was used for the final shot of going through the cabin doors and all that. And that was Sam Raimi and Tim Philo coming up with that stuff. I had nothing to do with it. I was just always amazed. There was also what they call it, Vassal Glide. There was a camera shot Sam wanted when I think it's Linda lying on the floor, and there's a very low shot where the camera moves slowly across the screen, uh, or
This
the
one, right?
goes across the set. And what they had done was take a 2x4 and very carefully stretch mask uh, uh, what's it, a duct tape over it so that there were no bumps on it. It had to be perfect. And I think it was like 2 layers on top and one on each side. Then they smeared that with Vaseline, and they made a wooden uh, uh, a wooden mount on top of it that snugly fit. Had um, duct tape on the inside of that, but just fit on it so it would stay steady. There weren't any rollers or anything. And then they had somebody pushing it, and then there was a camera mount on top of that. So the camera was maybe 10 inches off of the, or less. Oh, maybe, yeah, maybe just eight or so inches off of the floor. And they would push it along and had to do several takes to make sure it was nice and smooth, didn't have stops and everything, and it seemed to work out pretty good. But Sam was always whipping the stuff up, and I had nothing to do with that. There was one camera shot in Evil Dead that I suggested. Bart Pierce and I spent 3 months doing the stop motion animation effects for the finale. We shared animation. I did the lion's share of the stop motion, but he ran the camera perfectly. And there's a shot that for the finale where Cheryl and Scotty are decomposing, and Cheryl was standing up, and I had a shot that I stole from King Kong, where Ann Darrow is in the tree during the T-Rex fight, and Kong backs up against the tree and knocks the tree down. And the way they filmed it was they had filmed the background rear projection image footage of the camera panning up into the sky as the tree went backwards. So it's like the camera is mounted to the tree, and as it's tipping backwards, the camera's going with it. And they had blown up, they had fans to blow the air and stuff up so her dress would look like it's actually moving when it's not. And so I wanted to try something like that. But Bart Pierce came up with we mounted the puppet of Cheryl, the Deadite puppet of Cheryl, on a hinge, and then he mounted that to an old-fashioned tire car jack that had a crank to it, so that we figured we'd go like a crank and a half or something a frame, and or have it accelerate slightly, and then we would film a shot and he animated the dots needed for the decomposing on one side, and I did the other side, and it went like that. And it was a great collaboration because I came up with that shot where it's falling and the camera's with it, and then so you can see the face go ah, and it's a great scream they put in there. And then Bart had done a shot where they had a head hit the ground in a movie he'd made, and what they did is they took the floor and turned it upside down and had a fake head and rammed the head into the floor and had the camera looking up at the floor, so it would be look like it's looking down on the floor. And then so when the head exploded, it shattered and flew up into the sky. And so I cut up a Revell model kit apart and had a clay skull built around it, so that when that hit, it would just crack. And I filled it with, I can't remember all the crap we put in there, but chopped up masticated bananas and fake blood and whatever would work in there, and it worked really well. And then Sam Raimi, being the genius he is, had the shot where you get Bruce's reaction shot. And so what he did was he had Bruce on the ground watching this thing fall down, and then didn't tell Bruce, but then he threw a handful of fake guts and blood into Bruce's face, and Bruce goes, "Oh God!" And those three ideas made a kick-ass ending for the film.
Yeah, it's a great ending. And talking about that, I think that this is this storyboard thing. Just a moment.
Yeah. Let me set that up.
Yeah. Do you still own this? Oh, sorry. Oh.
Yeah, they're tucked away somewhere.
They are great. I mean,
thank you.
I always dreamed to see these closely because I mean they are great. Great. It's all your art. This one.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Wow.
Originally, Sam wanted me to make balloons of Cheryl and Scotty and fill them with smoke, and then have them leak out smoke and deflate. And all I could think of is, in the theaters, first of all, that isn't very, for all the gore we've had, it didn't seem to be a finale kind of thing. And like when I think of a finale, like if in the States here, we have the 4th of July weekend where you go to a park and you watch him send off a firework and it goes off, and then another one, and then another one, and that goes on for 45 minutes or so, and then the last 10 minutes it's blam 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 bam, and it's all over. but it goes the finale of a fireworks show goes on, and it just tops everything. I mean, it rumbles like thunder, and I thought that's how it should end. And I had seen several times George Pal's The Time Machine, 1960 film with Rod Taylor, Yvette Mimieux, and Alan Young. And I love. There's a great scene in there where the time traveler has finally gotten back to his time machine, but it's in the grasp in the Sphinx building, the Sphinx mound or whatever it is, of the Morlocks, and he's battling Morlocks, and he kicks one. It hits its head and dies against the wall of the cavern, and he jumps into his time machine, pushes it forward so he can escape them because from their point of view he's disappeared. But as he's recovering, he looks over and he sees this Morlock's body decomposing rapidly because years are going by. And it's only like 3 shots, but it's a clay Morlock, and it disintegrates, the skin goes away, and then the bones collapse, and then an eye falls out and the head rolls off, and it's over. And I came up with those drawings. I don't know, 8 or 9 drawings. I forgot how many, and where I turned it into more of a sequence with
Are,
the 2 characters.
are you talking about this one? Just a moment. Maybe I found the scene you were referring to. Okay, this one, I suppose. Just a moment. It's arriving because I have to find the video on YouTube. Okay, it's arriving. It's arriving. Oh my God. I'm not able to share this evening. Here it is. Is this one?
That's it.
Wow. This is all stop motion, obviously.
That's stop motion. Yes, clay animation. They had, the skeleton and then the clay, and I'm not sure who did that, who did the animation for it, but that was inspiring to me. Anything stop motion was gold to me. I've collected every stop motion film I can find, even on YouTube, and have my own little category on YouTube for that stuff.
That's great. And at the beginning, you talked about Equinox.
Yeah,
How much this inspired you? Is just the story? Is more the creators? I have it in my backlog of movies to see, but I never seen it, and I'm very curious about it.
it's an interesting little film. I think people have said the Evil Dead has like the same storyline. It's like 5 people, a small group of people out in the middle of the woods. There's a cabin and an old book and stop motion creatures, with evil demons, supernatural bent to it. Uh-oh.
Oops.
Kong has fallen again. Oh, and I taped that up so well. And that's about. I think what those ingredients are is not having a budget for a movie, and so you go out into the woods and you can film stuff, and it's not paying for sets or bothering people for locations and that kind of thing, and so it's cheap. And a cast of 5 or 6 people, well, that's even easier. You have to feed them that much. You usually aren't paying them much, and you can, Herb Tarlick had a career out of that. Or the actor who played Herb Tarlick on WKRP is the only one I think that one I had on a career in acting. But yeah, it's stay
It's
steady,
alive.
Con.
It's alive. It's
Yeah,
alive.
and that's my easel back there, the old ladder. And anyway, I think that's the influence. But Sam hadn't seen it, and when I got the script for Evil Dead, the description of the Book of the Dead was some kind of ancient book, some kind of leather skin book that had a few letters of an ancient alphabet on the cover. And that's exactly what the book in Equinox is. And I told him that. And so he let me come up with my own. And at the time, I'd heard about Ilsa Koch. She was the wife of a commandant of a concentration camp. And she was tried and hung at the Nuremberg trials. And she was a sadistic, sick little woman, and not busty and everything like the uh, S Ilsa Koch SS She Devil films or whatever those were with Dylan Thorne in the 70s. She was a mousy little lady, and but very sick, and she had prisoners skinned and made lampshades and curtains and book covers out of their skin. And I took the idea of a book cover from that. I read this in one of my dad's Saga magazines, men's magazines or something. It didn't have porn in it, but it was this all the strange, grim stuff. And I remembered that. And I thought, well, if you're going to have human skin, you need a recognizable feature. And I wasn't going to put a genitalia on the cover, even though a book with a handle is an interesting idea. Uh, but so I used a face, and I'm pretty sure I used uh, Hal Delrich's mask.
Yeah.
Uh,
We
I had made molds of the three actors, or of Hal, Teresa Tilly, Betsy Baker, and Ellen Sandweiss. On one day, I did them all in one day. It was, and those poor ladies are all kind of claustrophobic, so it was really tough for them, because I'm covering up everything but their nostrils, and it takes a while to set. And I didn't know about Ultracal, which no, it's that stuff you put on. It's a minty stuff when they dentists make. What does I wish I could remember? I haven't used it in so long. But it's a paste you put in. Dentists put in your mouth to make molds of your teeth. It's kind of minty flavored. Sets in about 3 minutes, and people out there will know what I'm talking about. And you put that a thick layer on that, and then you put the plaster on top of it or plaster bandages and let that set, and then you pull that off. Um, and but I greased their eyebrows with Vaseline, and then taped out their faces with tape and aluminum foil, so the plaster wouldn't, you know, get on their hair. And then so I just had the front parts of their mask, of their faces that I could do masks to. And uh, then what happened? Then I build up on clay and stuff. And my first set of masks that I did for Evil Dead, I based on the Egyptian Sumerian, which I had no idea what a Sumerian was. I just figured kind of a proto-Egyptian. And the Egyptians, were dogs and hawks and snakes and things. And so I did a dog and a hawk, kind of a birdish thing, and a kind of a snakish thing in clay, and showed Sam, and he goes, that's looking a little too much like Planet of the Apes. Let's try something else. And so he suggested the idea that they were like caricatures of the characters. And so since Linda was the beauty of the group and Bruce's, love interest, um, Sam had a mannequin that that from his mom. She had, her name isn't Lulu, but she had a shop called Lulu's Lingerie, and so he got mannequin parts and things that we could use. And so I took a mold off of a mannequin and made a plaster cast of the mannequin's face, and then cut out the eyes, and that glued that onto Betsy Baker's face. And we also needed a casting for like a full body front and back casting for Betsy Baker for one of the special effects things, and that went all wrong. The plaster caught in her hair, and I actually had to lift up so the front mask was stuck. and so I had to, and I couldn't separate them, and so I had to have a single-edged razor blade underneath the mask
Yeah.
so I could cut the little bits of hair as the top. And she wasn't happy about that, but it worked out. And
Yeah.
I did one for Scotty as well for the eye gouging scene, where I had
Yeah.
to get him in the mouth and all that. And uh, the alginate, that's what that stuff's called, the pink stuff that you put on. But by then I'd learned about alginate, and so I used that for the Scotty thing.
Uh,
And so I got his mouth and tongue and everything in that, and then I poured a solid plaster casting, and then uh, cut the eyes out, drilled the eyes out, and then sculpted, put in the goo, and then with clay I covered it over and sculpted new eyelids with the with clay deadite eyeballs in it. So all Bruce had to do was jam his thumbs into the eyes, and the effect was over. And they just put the shirt on, Scotty's shirt on the plaster thing, and there you go.
I have a question about the old Irish style. Maybe you give an hint before with the animals thing, the dog, etc. But while when we interviewed Hal Darich,
Uh-huh.
we have a doubt about this thing. Wait a moment. This one seems a dog nose. Is that one that is something you planned, or it's just come out like this?
um oh yeah, uh that the dog nose is the only surviving thing about the Sumerian prototypes that I did. That's the only one I actually wound up using again, is the dog thing. And that became because uh, Scotty uh, runs away from his gang. He says, she's your girlfriend, you take care of her. And he splits. And so we turned him into a dog because he betrayed his friend. And so that one worked. So,
Yeah,
but there's also a fun story is uh, Hal Delrich, whose real name is Richard DeManicore.
yeah,
He uh, One of the films that got him interested in filmmaking was How to Make a Monster, and I was a teenage Frankenstein. And in How to Make a Monster, a local special effects artist, a makeup guy, is trying out a new glue or something, and I put the Kong thing back up, and it'll probably fall down again, and uh, the fumes had an effect on the kid, uh, being and turns him into he goes out in the monster makeup and actually terrorizes people. And then there was, of course, the Michael Landon, I was a teenage werewolf film, and he kind of confused the two, but he though both of those films inspired him. And so he's in the makeup chair, and I'm turning him into a werewolf kind of thing. And he thought, wow, it's come full circle. I've reached my dream. And I thought that was kind of cool. That's
yeah,
a nice story.
yeah. That's real. I mean,
Oh,
that's
and there's a little detail I want to point out. There's a shot, and it's from the side. So you're looking at Hal in the werewolf makeup from the side, and he's sitting on the couch and he's dying. He's got that stick in his stomach,
yeah, yep. Okay,
and if there's kind of a close up of his face, or at least a medium shot, and if you look closely, he's he's his nose is gushing blood. And when we drove down to Tennessee to film that, we stopped for lunch at a bar, and I noticed all these little micro size, really thin little cocktail straws. And when the bartender wasn't looking, I grabbed about 10 of them, and I thought those would come in handy. And what I did was, for the nose thing, I was always trying to bring more to the set than what I was asked to. And I'll explain some of those too. But I took a I took a paper clip and straightened it out, put it into the straw, and then bent the straw so that it kind of had a little, let's see, a little spigot kind of thing. It
Hmm.
would go into his nose and underneath the makeup of the werewolf, and then into his mouth. There it goes
Oops.
again. And so Hal would have blood in his mouth, and he would blow through the little straw, and out it would come his nose. And there was another thing where when Shelley gets stabbed with the dagger, there's a close up of the dagger's mouth, and it's puking blood as it's
Yeah.
jammed into her. I showed up on set with that. I thought, why not? I was looking at that, and I knew we were going to shoot that scene the next day. And I thought all I have to do is drill a hole through the mouth of the skull on the dagger, and I had a tube I could jam into the backside. So if you shoot it from underneath, um, the we could blow blood through it, and Sam got a close up of that kind of thing.
Yeah, that worked very, very well indeed. Absolutely. Okay, let's go ahead. Wait a moment. Here it is. So, okay. Okay, he also helped design the Book of the Dead. Okay,
Yeah,
was
he
it?
helped
Yeah,
design. No, I designed it. It was my
exactly.
baby. Uh,
Esatto, as it appears on screen, and drew the pen and ink illustration, glyphs and sigils seen on the pages of the book. So it's partially
that's
true, but
true.
not completely. Yeah.
But the cover of the book was my idea, and Sam told me he didn't need to. We never needed to see inside the book, but being an artist, I have to draw on everything. I drew on my movie script as well. The cover, I gave it a cover and back cover with illustrations, and uh, so when I finished my other work, I'd sit around the table and smoke joints with Josh Becker, and we talk movies. And Josh is amazing on movies. You don't want to get into an argument with him because he'll win. And uh, uh, and I had an art teacher of mine had given me a book on Leonardo da Vinci's notebooks, all
Hmm.
of his anatomy drawings and all that stuff. And I had them memorized. I didn't have that book with me, but I had enough of it so that I kind of used that as the inspiration for it. And there's a couple of drawings uh, that you might find in there that you can see how I lifted them from Da Vinci's books. There's one shot of one drawing of a man's back without skin. It's just the muscle groups. And I did that, but I added deadite wings to it. And then there's just portions of bodies, and I did all that kind of stuff, and then added weird vegetation and all that. I didn't know about the Voynich manuscript at that point, which is a very interesting illustrated book that nobody's figured out yet. But Da Vinci, of course, had come up with his a way of writing so that he could write backwards. Like you'd need a mirror to read it, and he could do that as fast as anybody else can write regular. And so I put in a crazy language that I call, like I said, bull script. And I just made that up as I went along. I started out with hieroglyphs and trying to remember what was in the behind on the wall of behind in Yul Brenner's Pharaoh's palace in the Ten Commandments. That's all I had to go on. And so I just made that stuff up as I went along and then repeated them every once in a while. And none of it makes any sense at all. And uh, I'm and then towards the end I just ran out, and so I started just scribbling stuff just to fill up pages, make it look like somebody else had written in it, or they were more like the notes of the artist.
That,
And
that, that's great. So we can tell there is something of Italy in the Necronomicon Ex Mortis, let's
oh,
say.
definitely, sure.
That's great. That's great.
And I tried to stick with things that were Evil Deadish, vines that had finger-like things so they could move around, and the white eyeballs and uh, chopping up body parts kind of stuff. And like I think there's one shot that's like a pile of body parts, and then weird lunar things. I remember at the time the Disney film The Black Hole, which I also put up there with the '76 version of King Kong or whatever that was. It's just awful. It's Maximilian Schnell doing Ludwig von Duck. It's just or Ludwig von Drake or whatever his name is. But it's just an awful science fiction film trying to copy on Star Wars and failing miserably. And I heard they were doing a remake, but I'm glad that that's not doesn't seem to be happening. But anyway, but the ad for the Black Hole was really cool. It would get you into a theater, where it starts out and it's outer space, and there's like a computer graphic of the well of the gravity well of a black hole. And this great voice says, "In outer space, there's a force so powerful, a gravitational pull so strong, not even light can escape." I'm paraphrasing. But as it's saying that, you're going around the edges of this well. And as it moves along and the music gets more dramatic, it speeds up and whoosh, you go down this well and all the lights flash past you. And I did a page that was kind of, I didn't have the well in it, but it's kind of like that. So I was just grabbing from everything just to get the thing done as fast as possible. There's like 33 pages. I still have the book. It's in great shape. The covers have melted, but I still have them. And I'm
Wow.
happy to sell them for $750,000. I think I know if I sold it page by page, I could get probably 5 to 10 grand a page. But I'd love to keep it all together if possible.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes absolutely sense. I think I have. Wait a moment. I have a video. Um, with that, it's not the original one of yours. I mean, it was a replica, I suppose. Wait a moment. You bring with you in the conferences in the con. Wait a moment. I'm going to share it because this one is was in 2015, and the end you can see it's yours that helping me in taking the 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 this the movie, let's say. Here it is.
Yeah, that's one of my replicas. Well, my
Yeah.
my my version of it. My good friend Pat Reese bound them together with an amazing skill, and uh, Steve DeRuggiero, an astounding mold maker and artist himself, sculptor. Did I did the covers and he made the molds of them, and uh, we cast them in polyurethane foam at first, and then switched to silicone.
Yeah.
But I like the foam better because of the stiffness. But the silicone had a great tactile feeling to it,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
This is one of the page you're talking about, the Vitruvian man, let's say. This one.
yes, right, right. Of course, then that one it was a circle and a square, and I used a triangle and a different pentagram. Was it or?
Yeah, wait a
But
moment. I'm going to stop it. No, not this one.
and
This.
there's the other one of the man's back, and see that if that little face, that little head on the previous page, is a that's Sam Raimi there. The
Okay.
head
This one, maybe. Wait a moment. It's arriving. Not this
goes like
one. This one is the back, I suppose, right?
that.
This
That's
one.
yeah. That's Sam right there. Yep.
Back in the bottom left, right? This one.
Yep. That's Sam.
Wow,
Headless.
that's great. That's great. That's really great. Okay, we are almost finished with the Wikipedia page, I have to say.
Okay.
But we can, if you can talk about, you can still talk. We have. I'm very curious about the role play game thing and Cry of Cthulhu, if I'm spelling it correctly. So I'm going to share a little bit the Wikipedia page for a moment, and then we can pass to the other side of your astounding career.
Sure.
It's arriving again. Okay. Okay, so it's a after the success of Evil Dead, Sullivan worked as an effect artist, an animator on his 1987 sequel, Evil Dead 2. Is that correct? Right? I mean,
That is correct. I also created the Books of the Dead and the Kandarian Dagger, and I made uh, uh, five versions of the Books and the Dagger. The Hero Book of the Dead had full color, and the four stunt copies just were just photocopied onto nice paper and all that. And unfortunately, according to my contract, I was to keep those, but I was told after uh, I kept one version of the dagger and one version of the stunt copies, and I was told that the others were lost, which is a shame because that was my property. And today, that I could have bought a house with those things,
yeah,
and uh, I'm very sad about that because that was going to be my retirement, and of course, I don't have that now.
yeah,
And shucks, that's a tragedy. And uh, and there were uh, I did 5 sets of lost pages as well, and I kept 3 of those, but I'm still missing 2 of them. And I got up to $5,000 a page for the lost pages. The ones that I sold, I still have some, and those. But darn, 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 darn,
can
and
imagine.
that's a shame.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And you did even the initial sequence, right? The animation.
Yes, yeah, I did that stop motion sequence. That the book writing, I had um, I had made a book, still have that book, and the books were blank because he wanted to see it drawn on, and so that's a 14-hour shot that it took me, and so I had the drawing, and I would draw it out a little bit, click a frame, draw it a little bit more, click another frame, and then Sam wanted it to do that for like 3 or 4 pages, and then speed up. And so I drew the first three or 4 pages like that, and it would flip, and then I draw this one and that one, and then it would flip again, and then it sped up. And so I had cutouts of the pages already colored, and I would just stick one on here and stick it on and click a frame or two, and then click it on, stick another portion, another drawing on, and
yeah,
and then the final pages were already done and colored, and so it would just zip through those. And Sam seemed happy with that, except that he wanted the book to fly away, and I was just so tired I forgot all about that. So it just kind of spins. But he wanted it the door
ah,
the and darn it, I wish I hadn't disappointed him. I know he was disappointed about that, and I'm sorry, Sam. I uh, 14 hours is a long time to shoot, and
yeah.
uh, what do you
Wow.
do?
Then we have the final thing here. Just a moment. I'm losing it. Okay. That he then worked as sculptor or on the 1989 film The Fly too.
Yeah, the Fly Part 2. That was directed by Chris Walas, who got the Academy Award with Stephen Depew for his effects on the original of The Fly, the Cronenberg masterpiece with Jeff Goldblum and Gina Davis. And that was amazing to work on because that Evil Dead, I'm pulling it out of my butt. I just made it up as I went along. I had on Evil Dead, I had the script for 2 weeks before we started filming. Sam kept it under wraps, which for an effects guy was enough time for me to study the script, figure out how I might do things, and purchase the materials I might need. And remember I ordered a gallon of foam latex. I can't remember who made it. They don't. I'm not sure they make it anymore. But I had a gallon of that, that was the only really fancy stuff that I had, other than a couple of bottles of liquid latex, and cotton balls and tissue paper, and acrylic paints. Because with my experience with Bruce using grease paint, I just didn't want to go through that again, because you can't. It's hard to glue it on after you pulled it off. And with the latex, I could reuse the masks and again. And with the acrylic paint, I could reuse the mask. And but on the fly part two, here I'm working with a professional crew. When they weren't working for Chris Wallace, they were working for ILM, which is just a couple of miles away. I remember working. I worked under John Berg. Uh, oh, amazing fellow. He and Phil Tippett did the chess piece animation for the original Star Wars film at the Millennium Falcon, and he supervised the animation for the Walker sequence in. He and Phil did the animation for the Walker sequence on the Battle of Hoth in Empire Strikes Back, and holy smokes, I couldn't believe it. And he's an amazingly nice guy, and it turned out we both had kind of similar upbringings, just dads who didn't get us kind of thing, and but we just had a love for it and dove into it. And I think Phil worked on Equinox with Dennis Murin, who went on, of course, to be the like the supervisor of ILM for. He probably has more Academy Awards that he's picked up than anybody else in the world. But holy cow, what a crew! And it was just amazingly talented people from all over the world. Guy Hudson and oh man, little guy was so cool. And it was hard work, and and it was like a college level experience for me, because I really learned how to make molds properly, and how the techniques worked. And of course, they had all of Chris Wallace's stuff up there, Gremlins and Enemy Mine, and the Hand, and all sorts of cool stuff. And also, we'd be getting news from things they were working on at ILM, like Roger Rabbit. We're hearing, and Willow were being developed at that time. So I'm getting a little behind the scenes stuff with that. And I remember Tom Saint Armand came in. He builds stop motion armatures for ILM stuff back in the day. And he came in. I got to meet him briefly. And but here I'm just a little, here's a kid who made basically a home movie, that's struck it big, and did about 70-80% of the head of the fly, and I sculpted the legs that it stands on. We had a big pipe armature for it, and we packed on wet clay, and we have to wrap it in water, in rags covered with water, to keep it fresh for the next day. And but there was like 5 or 6 of us sculpting on that, and then I got to do the head. And there was a cool thing, because when I did sculpted the brow,
Okay, here we go again.
so when I sculpted the brows of the fly creature, and they did the mechanics for it, when it blinked its eyes, the eyebrows made a really interesting motion. And I remember Kelly, I can't remember his last name, but came in and said, "Hey, you got to see this," because they had put the rubber mask over the mechanical, skull, and he showed me how it worked. And oh, that's cool. It was kind of an unexpected surprise. And but the design of the skull was done by Chris Wallace, and it had those opening mandibles and all that stuff. And but it was quite a trip to build that and see how professional film. I didn't get to go to Vancouver for the filming, but I was beat by the time that was my boy 4 to 6. I think 6 months I worked on that, and
Oh,
it was a nice paycheck too.
that's great. At the end, they say that before working on special effects for Army of Darkness, the terrorist element in the original Evil Dead trilogy released in 1992.
Uh,
Is that correct or not?
that's not at all correct. They reused the scene from Evil Dead 2 in the very beginning, and I got a message that from Rob Tapert that they wanted since they'd lost the books from Evil Dead 2, they needed another one, and I made one, and I forgot to put in my contract, please return it. So they kept that one, but that wasn't used. They did use some artwork that they adapted, and for one or two of the pages, and their art director came up with a different cover, which I'm not. It's not what I would have done, but uh, but there it is. Uh, but Army of Darkness is, of course, a classic. And it's interesting to see how from within the woods, which is just scary, it's not terribly, there are some light moments with the characters, but it's not funny. And then it's dark and scary and gory. And then Evil Dead, it's got that darkness and humor to it, that dark humor to it. Then uh, Evil Dead 2 is half laughs, half scary. And then Army of Darkness is almost like Three Stooges kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
And which goes back to Sam's early roots because he loves the Three Stooges, grew up on those guys, and incorporated Three Stooges gimmicks into like Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 and the others, like the eyes gouging out. Remember how,
yeah,
Mo
yeah,
would, pink eye, hey, Mo, no. Well, now we've got the eyes gouging. And in Evil Dead 2, remember Mo would take a saw and run it over Larry's head? Um, and you hear this, there's this sound effect to it. Well, in that one, in Evil Dead 2, they take a chainsaw to Linda's head when her head's clamped into the vice, and stuff like that. And then Army of Darkness is just kind of goofy fun. So it got back to his roots. I have a great Larry Fine, Sam Raimi, Scott Spiegel story for you. I'll cry if I tell it. Hope you don't mind, but
mm,
it's really touching. Back in the early '70s, Sam and Scotty were fledgling filmmakers making their Super 8 stuff, and they loved the Stooges. And at that time, Larry and Moe were the last two Stooges alive. And they found out Larry lived at a rest home in uh, Pittsburgh, I believe. And he was quite a handful because he still had some money, and he'd split, which would throw the rest home management into a fit because they're responsible for him. And if he wanders off and something happens, they're liable. And but he'd be okay. He just wanted to go out and get the hell out of there for a while. Go see a movie, visit a museum, get some real food, something like that. And so they started a pen pal relationship with Larry. And uh, uh, he wrote them and said, I know for a fact I'm one of the most famous people on the planet because everywhere in the world where they had a sound projector, they made a dubbed in Three Stooges comedy for them, because most of it was just goofy action. And it was great propaganda because it showed Americans as, funny, goofy folks. And, but it was in all kinds of languages all over the world and everywhere. I'm sure they were in Italy, right?
yeah, yeah. They call them tre marmitoni. That is not the same word, but it's a very word that recalled. So
And and he said, but nobody even knows I'm alive. Well, back in the early '70s, there was a talk show host He had a movie matinee show. It was Bill Kennedy's matinee showtime, something like that. And Bill Kennedy was an actor in Hollywood for a couple of years. He's most famous for being the voiceover for the beginning of the George Reeves Superman series. Superman from the planet Krypton, known, who disguised as mild-mannered reporter Clark Kent for a national newspaper, and but protects the world for truth, justice, and the American way. That was Bill Kennedy. So then he'd been in movies, standing behind the actors and stuff. And he had the ascot. He was an elderly gentleman at the time. Had an ascot, a nice suit, and had the cigarette on the cigarette holder. Yeah, I knew John Garfield back in the day. He walked down the hall and said, "Hiya, Bill." "Hi, John." And I just tell his little stories. And he would show a Hollywood movie in the afternoon, starting I think 1 till 3. And so he usually had time to kill, and he had a phone-in part where you could phone in and ask questions or talk about how the actors in the film of that day and all that. And well, it turned out that Sam and Scotty had cooked up a little plot with Larry Fine. And so one day, Bill's got the phones open, and he gets a phone call, and one of those guys says, Bill, I got some bad news for you. We just heard that Larry Fine of the Three Stooges has passed away. No, I knew the Three Stooges, and I love those guys. And Bill runs with the story, and it even made the local news, as I understand it. And he had the scoop on it. Why? Because it wasn't true. They had plotted this thing really carefully. And so for the next week, that's all people called in about was how much they loved Larry Fine and how much they loved the Stooges. And then so a week later, the phone rings and, "Hey, Bill, this is Larry Fine. I hear I'm dead, but, I'm feeling a lot better." Or so I'm paraphrasing. I'm not sure what he said. But he said, they talked for a while. And he said, I'm so glad to hear there was an outpouring of grief for me and that how much I was loved. And I'd love to hear from my fans. And so he gave his address. And within a week, he had 3 huge sacks of mail. And he passed away 3 months later. Oh. And I'm just thinking, what a great thing for Sam and Scotty to do, is come up with this teenage Mission Impossible to get an old man to know how much he was
really
loved.
Moving. It's really
Son
moving.
of a gun. That's amazing.
Yeah,
I told you I'd cry every time I tell it. It's just such a beautiful story. I hope it's really true. But I think that's just the greatest thing to go out that way.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really moving. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I leave you a moment to.
Okay. Enough of that.
Okay, that's great. So we switch completely topic now. Okay. Because you just not working in the movies, but you were very active in the role play game field, in particular basing on the Lovecraft-esque side of thing,
Yeah, for a company called Chaosium, they have a terrific, a very popular role-playing game called The Call of Cthulhu.
How long you worked on that? I mean, how many illustrations you did?
From 1981, I think, till 1996. And one of my books I produced was the Sandy Peterson's Field Guide to Cthulhu Monsters that I illustrated. Had 26 of the most commonly seen Lovecraft creatures. And some information about them. They're all oil paintings and supplemental sketches I did with them.
Is this one yours, for example? or not? Yes, for
Yes,
this.
that's my first cover that I did,
Yeah,
and that
there
I
is
did for them.
it's smaller here, but there is your signature on the bottom right. Yeah,
Yep,
yeah, yeah.
yep. And a
I
funny story about that, I was South Park did a 3-part Lovecraft thing, and I think it's in episode 3. Uh, Kyle or oh, what's his name? Who's the little brat South Park guy? Uh, well, anyway, he's going around on Cthulhu's shoulder, and he gets Cthulhu to summon his friends to the Lovecraft realm, and they show three a South Park drawing of that island, and then it's repeated in a page of the Necronomicon, a different slightly drawing, and I was floored by that. That's so cool that I made it. Now that one I painted originally for myself, and that was done in 1980. And Ronald Reagan was. They had the Republican National Convention held in Detroit, Michigan, and Ronald Reagan was nominated as president to run as president for the Republicans, and that terrified me because I had friends out in California who told me what he did, the kind of police state he had turned California into, and I dreaded that. And so I had this monster scooping up. He's in a cavern and it's filled with humans, and he's scooping them up, dropping them into his mouth. And so that's my allegory for Ronald Reagan. I think I kind of nailed it because the things he did to the economy. That's why we have homelessness in such capacity today in America. It's disgusting. But that started with him, and he emptied the mentally ill from the homes, from the facilities they were at, and which is just, I don't get it. I don't get it. We're trying to help people, and as difficult as that is, he made it even worse. And um, I'm not sure what's going on, but that was my tribute. It was going to be part of a trilogy of paintings, but I never finished the other two.
and
One was going to be religion, and another one, I think, corporatism, but parodies of that, but you put them side by side, kind of thing.
how much they are big? I mean, they are on canvas, they are on paper sheet.
Uh, that was 18 by, those two were 18 by 24, I believe, inches, and done on oil paints. Love oil
Okay,
paints.
okay, okay. And then you participated to the Cry of Cthulhu, right? To try. Can you tell
Yes.
something more about this project? I mean,
Well, actually, that was before then. I met those guys when I was up in East Lansing at MSU, and uh, they had an idea for. They had an article in Fangoria, I think, about their movie, but just a little blurb. And they were down in Jackson, so I looked them up and met Bill Gates, who was one of them. He's sadly passed away since then, and uh, David Hurd, who had written a script called The Cry of Cthulhu, which was loosely based on Lovecraftian mythos. That was the thing that was done. August Derleth and Robert Bloch had also done their own H.P. Lovecraft stuff. There's my poster for it.
yep.
And now the story they wanted to tell was different from the script, which had kind of ghouls and things in it. But Bill Gates wanted this bigger, epic thing with Yog Sothoth and large monsters and a threat to all of humanity. But it was to take place in the Black Forest of Germany in Stuttgart. And so I did a bunch of illustrations for that. And at one point, the hero Farron Church, I think his name was, is taken on a shantak, which is a flying creature, which I have a sculpture of up here somewhere, and it's falling apart. But it was just clay over wire, a hanger wire, and uh, that and he goes visits this ancient extraterrestrial city, and uh, it's this big solid pieces of building. There weren't any blocks to them. They were just massive structures, and he's just a tiny little speck in these gigantic cities as he wanders through them. And so he kind of had the scope. And they went out and pitched it to a couple of studios, and uh, I won't say which one, but uh, uh, an executive at one of them green kind of said, "Hey, okay, we're really interested in this," and uh, they had gone to Dino De Laurentiis's, and he had offered them like 100,000 for the project, or maybe a little bit more, but they turned it down because they wanted he would have made the movie. They would have just turned everything over to him, and he would have done his own thing. And they should have gone with that and made the movie with that money, made a different film with that money. And I could have gotten paid for my drawings, which I never did was, but uh, I got the originals back. And uh, and we got some Fangoria stuff. But they went to a studio, and an executive told them, "Hey, I think we're going to greenlight this, and we're really interested." And then nothing happened. And the beginning of the next year, they get a bill from the IRS for to pay taxes on $500,000 that they never received. Apparently, the executive had, and this isn't the De Laurentiis people at all. It's a different studio. But apparently, the executive had greenlit the project, but kept the starting funds,
Oh,
and but they left a trail. I think something similar had happened to Cliff Robertson in the studio back in that same period, and he sued successfully. And but so I could say is, of course the film never got made. It would have been really cool. I talked to Craig Reardon and Ernest um, Farino about doing special effects on it, and Ernest Farino's an amazing guy. He's behind um, the Ray Harryhausen 3-volume books coming up soon, I hope, and it's going to be a masterpiece about Ray Harryhausen. And then you can still reserve those books. Um, uh, Master of the Magics, I think it's called, and but look those up because they're going to be exceptional volumes on Ray Harryhausen. They've got everything. Lots of cooperation with Ray and his family and his friends and the actors, the ones that even had plenty of time when they were still alive to interview them, and technicians and all sorts of people who kind of saw the sidelines of what was going on. And so it's going to be an in-depth. I think I'm probably not a biography anywhere near like it. And I even contributed something. I don't know if it'll make it in. Got time for Ray Harryhausen, Tom Sullivan story?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Back in 1981, I think, the year that Raiders Lost Ark it hasn't come out yet, but they were finishing it up. And Penny and I lived in San Francisco. She had a journalism degree from Michigan State, and but at that point, my sister Kathy was a manager, one of the managers at the Stanford Court, a top of the hill, stately, beautiful old building from old San Francisco. Um, One of the top hotels in San Francisco, still is. And there was uh, it's no longer there. They replaced it with something else. It was called the Cafe Potpourri, and it was a small cafe in there for you get breakfast and lighter meals than the full dinner stuff. And Kathy, my sister, wanted to go to Greece for 6 months, but they had rent control, and so she couldn't give up her apartment and couldn't pay for an empty apartment. So she invited Penny and I out there for 6 months, so we could find jobs, and she set Penny up as a waitress at the Cafe Potpourri. Penny had experience at Schuler's, a fancy restaurant here in Marshall, Michigan. They had a franchise back in the day, and Penny did quite well there. And uh, she uh, and so Kathy went off, and I got a job in an art department and doing merchandising artwork for stuff like Peanuts and Garfield and GI Joe, and I did Mr. T drawings. Oh, and ET, I did a bunch of drawings for ET. I went to the Universal Park and saw the ET ride, and I went into the gift shop, and there's where all my little cards with little ET buttons and pins
Wow.
and things. That was cool. Because I go, hey, I drew these, and the coach going, what? And anyway, so Penny worked at the Cafe Potpourri, and one night the movie Outland, a science fiction film with Sean Connery, I think it was Peter Yates directed it, and fun. It's like High Noon in outer space, and it's hard to find these days. But we were going to meet at the Coronet Theater, a big theater on Geary Street in San Francisco. So I get there, and I'm waiting out front for Penny to show up. She's at work at the Cafe Potpourri, and she's a little late. And it's the line has gone inside, and it's just like 7 o'clock, and she still hasn't arrived. And a big stretch limo pulls up, and out steps Ray Harryhausen and Jeff Rovin. Now, at this point, I have to back up to 1977 at the Triple Fanfare Convention in Detroit, Michigan. And this was in May, and it was like the weekend Star Wars opened. And Ray Harryhausen and Charles Schneer were guests at the Triple Fanfare Convention. So Penny and I went. I dragged her to it. She learned to like Harryhausen films by then, but nowhere near the fanatic I was. And so we go to the convention, and Ray enters. There's a crowded room, and I'm sitting in the middle of it. And as soon as Ray walked in, I first to my feet for the standing ovation, and he gave a great talk and everything. And then afterwards, there was a book signing, and I'm so in awe of him, I can't go up to meet him. I'm just, this is like meeting a god kind of thing. I'm not worthy. So I send Penny up with my Ray Harryhausen's fantasy film book to sign. And of course, she goes up to Ray and she says, "There's my husband over there. He's too scared to meet you." And Ray waved, and he signed the book, And then later, so I was happy about that and embarrassed. And but later, I go down. Penny wanted to see a movie that they were showing, and I was starving, so I went to the cafeteria, and I sat down and ordered a hamburger and some stuff. And as a couple minutes later, in comes Ray Harryhausen, Charles Schneer, and Beverly Cross, who's the screenwriter for one or two Ray Harryhausen films, and they sat at the table right next to me. And Beverly Cross at the time was married to Maggie Smith. He's passed away now, but and Beverly's a British guy's name. Go figure. And so they sit down, and Ray and Charles says to Beverly, "So tell us your ideas for Clash of the Titans." And he starts talking about, well, we're going to start, and the king, I forgot the king's name, but he puts his daughter Andromeda. No. I forgot her
Uh,
name,
yeah.
but puts her she's pregnant because of Zeus has impregnated her, and she puts her and the baby into the cask, and then sends it off to sea, and the mother dies, and little Perseus grows and raised up as a young fine man, and then he gets the gifts from the gods because there's a threat, and it's time for him to join his place in the world. And I'm hearing the whole thing, and at some point Penny comes in because I'm on like my second cheesecake listening to this because I don't want to leave. I'm sitting here, and this is history. This is their next film.
Wow.
And this is 1977, so it's still 4 years away. I think it came out in '81. And uh, so uh, Penny kind of finally finds me, and I sit down and we order two more cheesecakes. And until they hadn't gotten through the story, but I figured I've kibitzed this enough. We should go, and so we left. And so jumped to 1980, 81. I think it was 81, and uh, the stretch limo comes up, and out comes Ray Harryhausen and Jeff Rovin, who had written a book called The Land Beyond Beyond about stop motion animators, Ray and Jim Danforth and others. And it's a terrific book. I've got it. And uh, they uh, uh, and they I see Ray and I go, today I shall be a man. Mr. Harryhausen, my name's Tom Sullivan. I've been a fan of yours since I was a little kid. And your work has meant so much to me. And I just worked on a movie where I got to do clay animation of a meltdown of some characters. And he goes, well, I just got back from ILM and they're doing a picture called Raiders of the Lost Ark and they've got a meltdown. Everybody's got meltdowns. I like mine better, actually. And and so we just chatted for a minute. And Jeff said, "Gee, not many people recognize him." And I said, "You can't miss him. You know, he's like 6'4". And I had, you know, seen every picture I could find of him. I mean, I just adored this guy, and still do, of course. And so they went in, and right on cue, a yellow cab pulls up, and there's Penny still in her outfit from her her waitress outfit from the Cafe Potpourri. And they go, Penny, you won't believe it. Ray Harryhausen just pulled up and he's in the theater. And she goes, that's who that was. I knew I recognized him. She was late because she had been waiting on Ray Harryhausen and Jeff Rovin at the Cafe Potpourri. And so we go in and watch the movie. And just as it's winding down, she's looking around. And next thing I know, she's gone. And she's running up the up the alley, the side of the theater seats. And so I chase after her. And we get to the front of the building, and there's the stretch limo. The doors are open, and Ray gets into the back seat, and Penny jumps in with him. Says, "Hi, I'm Penny. Remember me?" She points her little name tag. "I was your server at the Cafe Potpourri." He goes, "Well, hi." And he got out and chatted for a bit, and he told us that he was going to be at Berkeley campus the next day, and he was on a tour to promote Clash of the Titans, and he invited us there. And sure enough, we were there, and I thanked him a lot for everything, and we went to the Berkeley campus and saw the presentation, and he showed a clip of Clash where they're in the dwelling with the pillars and the cavernous building, stone building of Medusa, and she freezes two guys into stone, and Perseus has got his mirror and you can see the reflection, and she's getting closer and closer, and he's getting.
Oops.
Everybody groaned. Perfect time to cut. And then it was just an amazing evening. He talked all about stuff. I asked a question or two, and it was an amazing evening. And then it turns out that he was there all at the Stanford court all weekend. That's where he was staying. And so she waited on him all weekend, and she got to spend a lot of quality time with him. And it was an amazing time. And I'm so happy that she got to do that. And I miss her greatly.
Clash of Titans was one of my favorite movies when I was a child, because as I said, I was born in 1981. So
Mm-hmm.
I grew up with those movies. Then my father, that is from the 50, showed me all the Argonauts and stuff. So
Sure.
I really love that kind of stuff. I mean, I even have some books about gray areas on filmmaking and art because I really love that. So it's great knowing that. I mean, someone which worked on a movie you loved a lot have the same kind, of passions. It's
Yep.
great.
And I got to meet my heroes. I met Darlene O'Brien, the widow of Willis O'Brien, who, of course, did the amazing special effects and animation for King Kong and Mighty Joe Young and uh, uh, Black Scorpion and many others. And uh, a friend of mine in San Francisco, Myron Mercury, had uh, contacted Forrest Ackerman and Darlene O'Brien because he lived in Oakland, California, and wanted to put on a tribute to Willis O'Brien. And he contacted a bank in Oakland, and they gave him this nice lobby on the second floor. And he had it filled up with storyboards from films that were never made, and had like the painting of King Kong. That was one of the instrumental things. It's King Kong, and as there was an adventure and a woman in kind of a torn dress and an ape. It wasn't what Kong became, but it was an ape. And uh, what's his name? Forrest Ackerman had provided one of the hand grenades, the smoke grenades from Kong that he had in his collection, and things like that. I remember a looked like an ashtray, but it had like a diplodocus in metal around it from Lost World. That was just beautiful. And I made a. Oh, hey, I think I. Oh, let me get this. You got to hang on a second.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Get through all my cables here. Here we go. Showbiz, kids. They had a display that was like 18 inches, or I'm not sure what it was, like 16 inches by 16 inches, but it was a block of clear glass. And if I could make something that would fit inside that, I could be part of the display. So I chose to do what the stop motion setup for the Stegosaurus scene for King Kong might have been like. And so I started with the background. And let's see if we can get this lit
Yeah.
correctly.
Wait a moment. I'm going to put you full screen so people can see better.
Okay.
Okay. Here it is. Yeah. I can see some trees, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We square this right.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, that's the background.
Mm-hmm.
Then there is the middle ground.
Yeah. Wow.
And then there was a foreground.
Wow.
So when you put them together, kind of comes out like that.
Wow.
And of course, they were spaced apart. And I had made a little sculpted Stegosaurus that I did one evening at Myron's place. And he was amazed at how fast I put it together, but I was a pretty good sculptor by then. And and then I had built a little tree, a little foam tree that I had sculpted and dressed up with little roots from a tree that I had found, and for vines and things, and put some lichen on it and stuff like that. And it had a ground, and so that's what they would have filmed to do the rear projection of in front of the actors. And of course, this display that Myron put up was world class. It was a beautiful thing, just beautiful. And I'm certain every employee of ILM showed up to that thing. and got to see this,
Wow.
and which still exists and is still in good shape. But you're getting quite the tour today.
Wow. Wow. That's really that's
Oh,
really
no, I got to finish it off. And so I got to meet Darlene O'Brien was invited over to Myron's place for an evening, and even though Penny was sick with the flu, I pleaded with her to let me go. I'd only be gone for 2 hours, and I was. And but I got to chat with Darlene O'Brien, and she was such a sweet lady, and loved Willis O'Brien so much. Which, after the tragedies of his life, is just what he deserved. And she didn't know a lot from about the technical side of stuff, but definitely um, it was so heartwarming. And she signed my poster for the event, and it's probably my one most cherished possessions. She signed it. Obi would be so proud, and just the influence that guy had on me and filmmaking. I mean, they're still making O'Brien movies and Harryhausen movies today. The Lord of the Rings was pitched by Peter Jackson as an epic Harryhausen film. And it is. And holy cow, there's the kaiju films are as big as ever these days. And of course, King Kong and the Beast from 20,000 Fathoms is what started all that.
yeah.
I mean, there's no secret. Godzilla was influenced by the Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. The success of that. I heard that they figured if they did stop motion, it would take them 7 years to complete it. Which I'm not sure how they did the math on that, but another tribute to Ray Harryhausen that he could get it done in a year by himself. And yeah, the it's been quite a trip, and yeah, how about that? I got to meet, and then we back in '92, I went out with a friend to East Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, and we went to the Frank Frazetta Art Museum, and he's got a little uh, building, or it was upstairs, third floor of a building at that point. Now he's got his own building. And if the first floor was his son's sports center, which he did the cards for, and I grabbed a couple of those. And uh, 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 Frank Frazetta's wife came in, and I had my Sandy Peterson's Field Guide to Cthulhu Monsters with me, and I had signed it. Frank, thanks you for all the inspiration. Your fan, Tom Sullivan. And I gave it to Ellie, his wife, and said, I went on, I did this, and I've been working as an illustrator for role-playing games, doing Lovecraftian monsters and stuff, and developed a film. But I also did the special effects for a horror film called The Evil Dead. And Ellie goes, Frank loves The Evil Dead. And she said, excuse me for a moment. And she walked off and came back a couple minutes later and said, if you're not doing anything tonight, if you could be at the house at 9 p.m., Frank would talk to you in his studio for an hour, but just 1 hour, no more.
Wow.
And so I've never gotten so gussied up, not even for a date. I literally put my clothes on in the car before we got there. I didn't want to smell her. It was so, and my friend went in and talked to Ellie for an hour, and I went into Frank's studio and we chatted with him. And he looked at my book, and which are just kind of phantasmic kind of creatures and everything. And he said, I can't do what you do. I need to base it on something real, like the real anatomy of a real thing. And here you're just kind of coming up with stuff. And I said, well, actually, I'm taking like your little mushrooms and your little clouds of smoke and the little extraneous things of yours, and I'm turning that into stuff because you kind of taught me how to draw loosely, and read everything you said about protecting your artwork and all this stuff, and I've tried to do that. Didn't always work, but just the influence he had on me. And we spent the hour and chatted, and it was terrific. He showed us uh, onion skin paper drawings of a book that hadn't been published yet, wouldn't for another couple of years. But at that time, he had just had a stroke. They figured it was maybe from some fumes from a cheap turpentine or something. But he had to learn how to draw with his left hand. He's a right-handed artist like I am, but he had to draw with his left hand, which I've tried to do, and no, I can't even write my name with my left hand. It's amazing how we favor one hand over the other. But most artists are left-handed, and I think it's a right brain, left brain thing. But I'm proud to be in that group with Mr. Frazetta. But just another very charming guy, and we hit it off. And I asked him questions that and I've read them all answered in other interviews with him since then. But it was just to meet the guys who influenced me, and Darlene, who represented her husband quite well, and to be honored by all of them was just awesome.
Like it's awesome the fact you shared with us your story with that is
Oh, thank you.
it's real go. I mean, I hope everyone is enjoying this. um for anyone that is connecting now, this is a recorded interview, so sadly we can give you any reply in live, but Tom shared with us the best stories. I mean, it's a great pleasure to hear you talk about this because I mean, you are like us. You are a fan of something, and it's great to see how you're passionate, how passionate you are, and uh, it's great. It's great. I mean,
Oh,
uh,
thank you.
okay. So thank you again for your time. Thank you for great story and for everything you told us during this
Oh, you're welcome.
interview.
This has
Uh,
been terrific. I didn't expect to say this much, but boy, we sure filled up 2 hours and three
three
minutes.
minutes. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely. This is the longest interview I had, but
Great. How
it's
to
even
turn
the
this into a DVD and sell it.
yeah, it's even the most expected one because no, for no other interviews I had so many. I posted the event, the one you shared on your page too, and there are so many people interested in participating to the event on Thursday. So I expect many people watching this during the live itself and even after, because this one goes on YouTube, so you can see, you can watch and share anything, anywhere, anytime you want, in case.
Well, maybe if it's a big response and people want more, we'll schedule one and be able to do the call-ins or whatever, however people want to interact with it.
Absolutely, absolutely,
But this
because
has been
people love to interact. People love to ask questions, and I mean, sometimes questions are not the best questions, so I have to to select because, but it's fine. It's fine. It's fun. It's funny. Have a live with people.
and
Right.
I just to point out, you see these are black boxes up
Yeah.
here,
Yep. Yep.
and they're like this wide, and they're filled with CDs of movies.
Wow.
I have thousands of movies, thousands.
It's
And
your
then in my
collection.
other room, I've got all my Blu-rays, and I have like 232 3D films. Got
Wow.
a 3D camera or a 3D television set.
So thank you everyone that followed this interview, and have a nice night. Good night. Bye bye. Here I am again. Now I am live. It's not a pre-recorded video anymore, because that one's finished just now. I was really happy for the reaction. I mean, there were a lot of people watching this one. I'm very happy, and surely we are going to do something more in the future. I don't know when, because it's not so easy scheduling something like that, but it can be done. Remember that I'm trying to organize other live episodes. Uh, I am working on two at the moment. The first one with the guys from Hail to the Deadites, both director and the guys behind the podcast. That they are very cool and very nice, and we can have a real cool chat about the Evil Dead and the documentary itself. Then we are going to have another live with Michael Hibbert, that is the guys behind Army of Darkness comics fan page, um, about Army of Darkness Forever comics. We are working to bring again Tony Flicks and the illustrator for the second part of the comic itself. And last but not least, um, well, I'm working on bringing to you the an interview regarding the Marauder of the Evil Dead Rise. I have to say, the Marauder interview was already recorded, but I'm trying to improve it because maybe I can get more contacts for that, and so more story, because for the moment I just interviewed the designer of the Marauder, but maybe there is an opportunity, I don't know, that is still feasible, to talk with the guys who let's say realize the prosthetics for that puppet. So let's see what is going to come out. Okay, so I'm very happy you followed this one. Please spread the word. Evil Dead Italia is on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitch, and even X or Twitter, as you prefer. Please share this video, like the page, like the video. Try to spread the word, because more my page, more my profiles are, let's say, have good numbers, more it's easier for me to get interview, because I don't have any particular contacts. I'm just a fan. I have no direct contact. Is more a passion projects. So mm, this is the good and the bad thing. I mean, it's not always easy to get contacts and get interview. So more you spread the word, getting nice interview, because my numbers are more interesting in terms of visibility. Okay, thank you guys, and have a good day or a good night, depending on your time zone. For me, it's night. So see you probably on the next week. I'm going to publish as soon the link as usual, as soon I have a precise time. And so see you soon. Goodbye.